Hello, name's Alan. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today we will be moving on to the final iteration of our special build Wizard of Legend saga. But first things first, what is a special build in Wizard of Legend? A special build usually consists of the usual, i.e. starter relic, starter robe, starter abilities, and then a second starter relic, which will be a cursed run modifier starter relic from outside of the game. That means you can purchase up to one of these in the lobby at the Nock Shop, where you would also be able to unlock your items, talk to NPCs, declare your run, etc, before actually entering your run. That means if you were to randomize a run at the cardist in the lobby, you would only know in hindsight whether your run modifier choice was foolish or not, as you have to declare these before entering your run, whereas when randomizing, the randomized parts of your build are only revealed once you have entered your run, i.e. begun your run. As cursed relics are non-rerollable and non-discardable in this game, not even the run randomizer can get rid of your run modifier. All of that having been said, I'd say let's get into today's build, shall we? Today's build is called Catastrophic Climate, which is a reference to our run modifier, which this entire build refers to and revolves around. I do like this one a lot. I'd say let's take a look at it before actually talking about the build here, as that is quite important. There are a lot of things that have to be said about it before we can actually begin. The run modifier is called Catastrophic Codex, or how I like to call it, Catastrophic Climate. All of the elements assail the Chaos Trials. The end is nigh. The apocalyptic relic of the past. Now, it's kind of impossible to determine just off of that description alone what this is gonna do. Now, you would probably assume that there's gonna be only elemental enemies or a ton of them, but you would be wrong in that case. Catastrophic Codex does so that the climate in this game will try to kill you. All of the elements will toss abilities at you constantly. About every 3 seconds or so, one ability of a random element will strike you. Now, these are not just all abilities in the game. That would be crazy difficult to deal with. Instead, it's a small set, a handful of select abilities that will try to come at you. For example, the Meteor Shower for the fire element, the Perfect Storm, which can freeze you for the frost/water element, and then a bunch of other abilities that are not so notable. But these abilities will still deal the regular, like wizard abilities, base damage. So the Meteor Shower will hit you for 50 damage every time it strikes you. The Perfect Storm will still be able to freeze you at a large AoE, etc. So these things are incredibly dangerous to deal with. They love interrupting you. They love hitting entire screens worth of enemies. They will even hit the entire room as long as you're inside of that room. They will only target you, the player. I believe even in multiplayer, the player holding this item will actually be the main target for all of these abilities. Now, these abilities deal collateral damage, however, which can be considered the advantage of using this ability, this relic, meaning that they will hit literally everything, regardless of what type of ally/enemy it actually is. So these are essentially neutral. They will hit both you and your enemies, both the player and regular entities, including bosses, including mini-bosses, including additional players, etc. Now, this, if I'm not mistaken, if I recall correctly, effect is only paused inside of boss stages, where the elements don't constantly strike. Probably because it would be too difficult to deal with, or because they would be considered too great of a help with boss fights. But other than that, they never ever pause. So one clear disadvantage here, which is kind of annoying, is if you had to make a difficult decision regarding taking a certain Arcana, or choosing between certain Arcana or certain relics, you should absolutely pause the game and not stand around considering making a decision here, because the elements never pause. Not even for you, not even if you're standing AFK. You have to pause the game and think about it and then resume once you're ready. But that's not really that huge of a deal once you understand that there is a pause function for this game. Indeed, I know not all roguelikes can decently pause the game or decently pause the flow of action to make a decision, a run modifying decision, but in Wizard of Legend it turns out to be quite important depending on what starter relics you got. And this is one that you should absolutely pay attention to. So keep in mind to just hit start or whatever button it is for you, maybe escape or something. I don't remember actually playing on a mouse and keyboard. Just pause the game, make a decision, and resume afterwards. Catastrophic Codex, this is a bit of a personal annotation, is my favorite out of all of the run modifiers. And I have barely ever played it, and that's probably also the reason it's my favorite, to be honest. This is not only the final one that I assembled, but it's also the most interesting run modifier in this game. Bear none, in my opinion. It's the hardest one to work around and to work with. I don't believe it has any clear advantages. I think it only serves you huge disadvantages. It cancels you out constantly. It gets you killed very, very quickly, doing a ton of damage to you, stun locking you, literally freezing you with a perfect stun, for example. And it can't really be abused all that well to hit enemies for you. You can't mitigate its effects. They are always there. You can't just ignore them. Even if you had like a super, super strong build, unless you build 100% evasion, for example, you absolutely cannot mitigate its effects. You can only try to reduce the effectiveness of these elements hitting you by, for example, picking up a certain prismatic item which lowers the elemental damage you take, as it's all elemental damage. All of these are elemental strikes. You can't just reduce one element here because it is randomized which element strikes at any given time. So just go for that certain prismatic item, wink wink, and you can somewhat cheese the effects of the Catastrophic Codex. However, even that isn't super impactful. It's just 20% reduced damage, which at the end of the day, when a comet hits you for 50 base damage, 20% is not a whole lot. It will still hit you for 40 damage, right? That's just a fifth of damage that you subtract from that equation. Which, if that ever were to crit on you, oh my god, that would still be an insane amount of damage taken. So, I like Catastrophic Codex a lot. I think it's going to be very interesting. I personally completely failed to make a build around it, and I feel like I'm just kind of incompetent regarding this. I don't really know how to mitigate it, so I decided to just roll with it. To be humorous about my incompetence here, and instead play to my strengths, I guess, which are just, in my opinion, very stupid builds that make my life a ton harder, and that's what we're going to be doing here today. As you will see with the abilities, because we are only going to be using abilities that sort of resemble the effects thrown at you by Catastrophic Codex to visually clutter up the screen even more so. This is already visually very confusing, as there will be the regular enemies, the regular traps from regular rooms, in addition to all the elements constantly striking you from across the screen, trying to swoop you off the screen, and that we will add onto our own abilities, which will look very similar to the Catastrophic Codex effects. In fact, some of them are literally the exact same abilities, making it sort of impossible to distinguish which abilities are ours and which are from the Catastrophic Codex. I like that a lot. I love embracing chaos, and this thing is literal perfected chaos. I love it. It's so freaking good. Let's get into the build. Let's continue in traditional order, starting from here though. We will start things off with our robe, of course, which will be the grit robe, which is the only viable pick here for me personally. The grit robe increases your armor by 10% and your healing received by 10% likewise, which is fantastic when you hit a ton, because then you're going to be hit for 10% less damage. With taking the 50 base damage comet again, it would still hit you for 45, right? Which, yeah, that kind of sucks, but at least it's 5 damage less on every tick. That's great. So lightning abilities, wind abilities, and the perfect storm are not going to hit you for as much, whereas the comet will still hit you for a ton. But also, besides constantly decreasing the amount of damage that we will be taking, which is pretty much unavoidable here for today's run, it will increase our healing received by 10%, giving us slightly more survivability from all health orbs picked up, which we will find plenty of, right? In a regular run, there are always plenty of health orbs from both breaking chests, killing mimics, rather, breaking obstacles or objectives, if you want to call them that, if you're some kind of weirdo, from actually getting to a boss stage, breaking the mini boss, the large chest, I don't know if that has a name, killing of Pinata, finding Dr. Song, etc. There are just so many sources of free healing or potentially free healing that you find in your average Wizard of Legend run that you will heal pretty much guaranteed all the time, whether you actually spend money on it actively to buy healing parts or relics, or you don't. Not to mention there are plenty of relics that also heal you, at least occasionally, even for tiny amounts like the regenerative Blades of Sympathy, for example, or the Jewelry Box. Healing received is very, very powerful in conjunction with the armor. Spirit Robe, on the other hand, which is kind of the healing equivalent, the healing only equivalent of the Great Robe, in my opinion, isn't as great of a choice, as it doesn't reduce the damage taken. It just grants you a ton of extra healing. But then again, if you can actually make it to the next shop to buy a healing potion, the Spirit Robe doesn't really do anything. And making it to that shop turns out to be quite difficult when there are elements constantly bothering you, trying to come at your back. So Great Robe is the only viable pick here. The upgrade should be rather impactful. 5% increased damage taken to the already 10%... sorry, not 5% increased damage taken. 5% increased armor, i.e. an extra 5% damage reduced to the already existing 10% damage reduction is fantastic. I do like that a lot. It also stacks up very quickly with other armor increases because they're all percentage based, which is crazy good if you think about a certain set of cursed relics, especially, that grant you like 20% increased armor, which is crazy. That is a lot less damage taken from the Catastrophic Codex effect. So you could go for an entirely like armor themed build here, and I think that will work out greatly. So Great Robe is a very great upgrade, and the increased healing received also by 5% respectively is gonna be decently helpful too. So the base robe as well as the upgrade should be rather impactful to your overall run, and therefore should be considered as soon as possible to be upgraded. Probably a lot more impactful than a lot of items, as there are plenty of items that would only grant you one of these stats, either healing received or increased armor, whereas the upgrade is just 100 gold for both of them. That is a great deal, let me tell you. It's fantastic. But it reduces your current HP by 100. You have to keep that in mind too, so it can be very risky to perform. You just have to play accordingly. For our first starter relic, or our second, however you wanna put this, we're gonna be running a bit of a weird choice here. We are not gonna be running the previously mentioned prismatic Vambrace, with which you can absolutely cheese the effect of Catastrophic Codex, at least occasionally, or any somewhat similar items like Sano's Hatband or Kasim's Area Cloak. Instead, we will be doing something... Oh, right, I probably should mention the fuzzy hand warmers as well, so you won't be able to be frozen. Instead, we will be doing something a lot more cheesy and weird. We will also be running a defensive relic, which, let's be honest, it shouldn't be in this category, it should be in miscellaneous. Absolutely, 100% without a doubt. We're gonna be running Hummingbird Feather. What? Which is kind of crazy to think about. It's a bit of a troll item. It's a newbie item and a newbie only item, but it's one that I think visually looks quite great and it's kind of fun to use. Not very impactful whatsoever. So Hummingbird Feather, 4 simple words and an exclamation point. Briefly hover over pits. You can walk across pits. It essentially has a set duration that it will grant you, that you can stand on pits, and then you will fall into them. You can also literally just walk across them, get back onto safe land, and then walk back onto a pit, and boom, you get the duration again. So what will this do for us? It will give us slightly more space to work with. There are a lot of rooms that are little cutouts that you like cut 20, 30, 40, or even 50% off, and they are filled with pits instead, where you can't walk on, obviously, and that you would fall into and take a sufficient amount of damage, which is kind of crazy. It's what, like 25 damage when you fall into a pit, which can of course be amplified by things like Double Trouble, making you receive much more damage. So Hummingbird helps us, giving us a lot more room to work with occasionally when we really, for whatever reason, cannot properly dodge a Catastrophic Codex. That also means this item is entirely worthless in boss fights, entirely worthless in mini boss fights, and super useless, or entirely worthless, if you much prefer that wording, in rooms that don't have pits in the first place, or that grant you plenty of space to move around. I'm thinking of a certain U-shaped room that has a rather tiny pit with a ranger spawning at both ends of the U, the top left and the top right, and then a bunch of knights spawning around the body of the U, you would never have to actually walk across the pit. You have plenty of space to use and abuse. So Hummingbird, generally speaking, is a very, very bad item, and it's a bit of a troll item as it literally does nothing for bosses and mini bosses in many given situations. But I'm hoping that I can at least somewhat use this occasionally. I have never really utilized it. I do like its effect visually. I find it quite pleasing to be able to just run across pits at full run speed without having to cancel your run animation, right? You only run after a few seconds of walking straight, and a pit just resets that timer because you have to stay still, dash across it, which will then make you walk again. So you will have to walk for a certain duration until you start running again. Now you can just run across pits entirely and ignore that altogether, which is nice. I find that quite satisfying. I find the animation of this when actually walking across a pit quite satisfying. You don't just walk across the pit, but it will cause tiny little invisible or almost invisible transparent, translucent, whatever you want to call it, platforms underneath your feet, which looks very nice. I just like that. It looks so satisfying. I was just hoping to be able to finally use this item. I'm just gotta be honest, and I think Catastrophic Codex is a decent fit here with the Hummingbird Feather, because there's actually a reason to walk across pits. You wouldn't really need to do that for most rooms in a regular run, so Hummingbird doesn't do a lot there, but it will be a little more helpful with the Catastrophic Codex, as sometimes there are rooms cut out in a way so that a comet, for example, would be super devastating, or perfect storm, and then you can try to at least mitigate their effect, try to walk around them quite literally over the pits, or just stand there for a short period of time and then dash back onto safe ground to hollow ground, I suppose, to resume the action part. Let's get into the abilities here. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. Go back there. Right, neat. Starting things off with our basic. Now, I didn't find a basic, I'm gonna be honest here, and full front, that really fits the Catastrophic codes. There are, as far as I recall, no basic effects in the Catastrophic codes, and there are no effects that even resume or closely resume a basic ability, so I just decided to run Perforating Jet, which is a projectile-based wind ability with a very, very long range, which will pierce all enemies hit and deal a small amount of damage. It's kind of like a long-range line skill shot whirlwind. Not really though, but that's what I tried going for, looks like. So, it can of course be redirected. As I said, one very notable aspect is the piercing and the very, very long range. It isn't the fastest ability, it doesn't deal a great amount of damage by any means, and it doesn't generate a huge amount of signature even when hitting these 4 enemies every single time. But it has a decent enhancement, which will make it deal a ton of extra damage. Still, the damage is so incredibly low compared to other abilities, it's usually not a very good ability, regardless of whether it's enhanced or not, regardless whether you pair it with candies, for example, or Fueled Berserk, gloves, etc., or not. It's just not a good ability innately, unfortunately, as the base damage is very, very pathetic. You definitely want to enhance it for extra damage, if you actually can afford it. Otherwise, definitely go for your Grit Robe instead, or your other abilities. But generally speaking, it does have a great enhancement, doesn't have a downside whatsoever. So if you find yourself being able to purchase it, go for it right away. Don't even consider it. There's not much more to be said about this ability, to be honest. It's just very lackluster, but it does have a great amount of crowd control. It's kind of slow, it's not very useful as a long-range type of poking ability, and it's very, very narrow to hit, which doesn't really get any better by the fact that it doesn't even deal a lot of damage when you actually do hit it, or grants a lot of signature when you do hit it, respectively. Very unrewarding ability. I do like it somewhat, but it is clunky, admittedly so. Also, it's a held ability, which can't be cancelled all that easily. You're kind of frozen in place while using it, which I also dislike a lot. That makes it very unflexible. For our dash, which you could see there by my teasing it, we're going to be using Thunder Line, which is just a strike of thunder hitting the area that you dashed from, like so, in a small area, dealing a tiny amount of damage, which is neat. You have 2 charges of this innately. which is cool. You can use this for crowd control or to confuse the ever-living fuck out of yourself with the Catastrophic Codex. And when enhanced, the area that's covered by the lightning strike will be a little larger, a lot larger, actually, in my opinion, and also shock the enemies for a slightly longer duration, dealing slightly more damage in the process, so you won't have to spam both of these for optimal damage output. Instead, you use one of them, wait a short period of time, and then use the other one, which is great. It's just a crowd control tool. It helps you stun on enemies coming for your ass, and again, confusing yourself quite literally with the Catastrophic Codex. I wasn't joking about that one. That's kind of the intent here with that ability. Moving on to our standard, which will be Perfect Storm, or Perfected Storm, as I sometimes call it for whatever reason, which is a weird ability. It's neither... It's nothing. It's not categorized as anything at all, which I hate. I really, really hate. At least slap like a projectile modifier on it. It's so stupid. Because there are items that are very circumstantial, that, for example, only affect your move. Your dash or your movement abilities, that only affect your basic abilities, that only affect projectiles, that only affect melee or only jumps. This is nothing. So a lot of items naturally are gonna not pair well with this, and therefore it's gonna be very hard making use of this ability, provided that this ability already deals okay damage in the first place. If it's an ability that is not very useful in the first place, it's just... You can pretty much only consider it absolute trash, because you can't make much of the ability. There are not many items to support it. The enhancement might not be very great. The base ability might not be very great. It might not be of the proper, like, good element that can be paired with an Ebon Wolf's Cloak, for example. Like, elemental-related specific relics. There are just too many specifics around certain abilities, but I am starting to ramble here. Perfect Storm is not one of the greatest abilities of this game. Let's be upfront here and be honest. But it is a fun ability, and for someone that has played plenty of Jaina and that knows World of Warcraft and similar games, this is a typical Ice Mage type of ability. So you cause this blizzard to fall down in a very large AoE that you target. It's kind of wonky to explain the targeting. You just target it a certain distance away from your character that you're looking into, like so. It will rain down, dealing small bits of damage here and there, and occasionally freezing enemies, which is also very hard to control, as this is randomized pretty much entirely from my experience using it. And when enhanced, it simply increases the storm's size and duration, which are fantastic. I love that enhancement. It's very, very useful. It can pretty much cover an entire room, which is great. Just look at that circle in the background. That's pretty much the exact same area as the base Perfect Storm, which is incredibly, that is so huge. Probably the largest one besides Scales of Babylon. It's so good. I love it a lot for crowd control, but it doesn't deal damage nearly fast enough, and it doesn't freeze nearly consistently or reliably enough to be considered a decent crowd control ability. Enemies can literally just walk right through and up to you and damage you. But it can't be cancelled. That's kind of its advantage. You just pop it down and walk away, and that's good. You're good to go. It's great. Very versatile in that regard. And the enhancement is very useful. It doesn't have the greatest amount of signature charge generation, even when hitting for enemies. You can tell this doesn't hit a ton, and every tiny itsy bitsy hit generates an equally as tiny amount of signature charge, even with the enhancement, as it doesn't hit faster or more frequently. This is not going to change, predictably so. It's quite obvious, honestly, if you think about it. It's just an okay crowd control ability, and it's going to be confusing because this is exactly one of the main abilities being used by our run modifier, which I do like a lot. It does have a rather short cooldown, so we're going to see this a ton, and it's going to try to help us out a ton, and it's going to be used as quite a ton, and it's going to confuse us quite a ton, being almost detrimental a ton to our run a ton. Moving on to our final ability, it's going to be our signature, our bread and butter ability in this rather underwhelming build of abilities. It's Crashing Meteor, yet another ability that isn't classified, that isn't standardized, that isn't... what's the word that I used earlier? That isn't categorized. Which, just why? Just why? Just slap projectile on it. It's a projectile. Clear as day. It's not a melee ability, it's clearly a projectile. Crashing Meteor. You cast a meteor, and when enhanced, it's not just one large meteor popping down, dealing 50 damage, base damage, that is, which can crit, in a rather large AoE. Not as large as Perfect Storm, but still able to hit all of these enemies fairly easily. Instead, you will pop down one large meteor, which will do slightly less damage, and a bunch of smaller meteors in the area because it's enhanced, like so. has a large amount of knockback, so you can absolutely ruin certain setups by splitting up enemies that you didn't mean to. Like, say I pop down a Perfect Storm and the Meteor, I just boost everybody out of the Perfect Storm, which obviously isn't very useful. Also, I immediately unfreeze any frozen enemy with these small meteors coming down, which will then be able to move out of the range of the meteor. So you have a bunch of anti-combos to make your life even harder there. There you go! Have fun! Enjoy! Have a good time! The meteor is our bread and butter ability, as it's the only one here that is somewhat usable. It has a decent damage output. However, as a signature, it's not super impactful. With these smaller meteors, it can be kind of annoying at times. As I said, unfreezing enemies or pushing them away preemptively to other abilities. It can be a bit of a nuisance, so we try to make it our main ability and not make this a support ability because, again, as we said, it can ruin certain other abilities. So just make it your main ability and you circumvented that problem successfully. There you go. Congrats. What it also does, it stuns enemies for a considerable period of time when actually connecting at the very end there, which is great. So you can easily follow that up with a bunch of other crap. However, you should absolutely use this to finish off enemies, as your basic is so narrow it can only ever hit one of these enemies after splitting them up. Which is just so terrible. So terrible. So many anti-synergies for this build. When used as a signature, when you somehow manage to generate enough signature charge, which you can basically only do with a comet, which deals a decent amount, a decent amount of signature, it will just cast a straight up meteor rain across the entire screen, which is crazy. It looks crazy, but it basically deals no damage. Deals 100 damage on average, which is not a whole lot. And against bosses, it's not super strong by any means, and against regular enemies, it pushes them around a whole bunch and out of the range of many of these meteors. So this ability may look like literally the most brutal, hard-hitting ability in the entirety of the game if you know all the signatures in the game. But trust me, it's so horrible. It's so terrible. It's so unpredictable and hard to connect, and you can't get good at this, quote-unquote, because there's just no way you're gonna try and aim this thing properly. It might even be randomized all entirely. I don't know. I can't really tell you. It's hard to enhance. It's hard to increase the power level of this due to it not being standardized, not being categorized. It's hard to make use of. It's hard to combine with other abilities. It's kind of hard to use as your signature. And overall, it may deal a decent amount of base damage. Like 50 is very, very good. But even as your signature, this thing is so fucking useless. And it doesn't have the greatest range either. It has good range, don't get me wrong, but you have to be quite precise when aiming this, or that will happen, right? I have to aim literally towards the very middle of all these enemies, of a large group of enemies. It's easy to miss. And it unfreezes enemies. That's a very, very very mention-worthy aspect of it, in my opinion, because we are using it with a freezing ability that otherwise pretty much does do nothing for us. So, there is the absolute shitfest, the clusterfuck of a build for you. I hope you enjoyed today's run. Bye-bye. Just kidding, of course. Let's move on to the build specifics. Oh boy. My voice is starting to crack up here already at the thought of me having to actually play with this crap. So, intended build playstyle. Try to not ruin things, I guess. Use your abilities one by one to not clutter up the screen too much. Do not proc too many anti-synergies, like pop down a Perfect Storm into Meteor. That's a very, very prominent combination that you might pull off a ton. But then keep in mind, the freeze is useless. And it just basically, it just doesn't allow Perfect Storm to deal any damage. So maybe cast Perfect Storm, let it linger for a bit, and then cast the Comet when enemies threaten to walk out of it. That might work decently well. Or cast the Thunderline to keep enemies stuck inside, and then finish them off with a Meteor. Things like that. You just kind of have to fiddle around, figure out the best combos, or the worst of the worst combos, or the best of the worst combos. I don't really know how to word it. Just don't do the worst possible combinations. Find something that is merely acceptable. Alright, you'll be good to go then. Other than that, I'd say you probably want to be very defensive and try to at least kind of bait these abilities to hit you in a certain way so that it will also connect to enemies. Say if you were to bait a Meteor, right? Enemies always constantly walk to you. The Meteor will try to strike your current location, hitting you in the very middle, right? So just walk away. Enemies will try to follow, walking into the Meteor area, and then be hit by 50 base damage for free, which is great, but keep in mind it also pushes enemies away a fair bit, like your actual Meteor ability as well. So just bait enemies into these attacks, but don't accidentally walk into them yourself, which can be very hard as they target you, clearly. And some of these abilities are very hard to dodge, like a Perfect Storm, like a Meteor, like the Wind ability. It's so much of a bummer. I hate it so much. So I'd say be very defensive and definitely not overtly aggressive. In boss fights, of course, you have to be overtly aggressive because you only generate a handful of signature charge, and only with the comet, really. Which we will get to here in a second, how to try to work around. But you have to be very aggressive to keep generating signature charge to have any kind of damage output whatsoever. Because without your signature and your signature ability, man, you're gonna be in the gutter in seconds. Like, boss fights are gonna be incredibly hard here. Let's move on to potential problems, which this is definitely arguably one of. Anti-synergies, clearly. A lot of stuff going on screen. Visual clutter, we've had that. Clearly, obviously, duh. But also, your lack of damage. Your overall lack of damage, your rather long cooldowns on the Meteor, for example. This is your main damage ability. It has, what, like a 6-second, 7-second cooldown, which is crazy to think about. So you have to stall enemies a ton to get this back up. You kind of have a very, very hard time killing larger enemies that have, generally speaking, a very, very large health bar, and then mini bosses additionally, and having a bunch of crowd control for mini bosses. You may have AoE abilities for the most part here, but they're just not very powerful or easy to hit. Take a summoner mini boss, for example, summoning a bunch of shit up your face. How are you going to kill it in time? How are you going to dodge it in time? How are you going to control it in time? And then there's a bunch of enemies scattered around the place with a rogue mini-boss, for example, or a ranger mini-boss. You can't cover the distance quickly enough, even with your huge AoEs, to hit all of them at once, kill all of them at once. You will have to deal with a lot of stuff, and you will, as a result, take damage all the time, pretty much guaranteed, without you exactly being able to do a lot about it. In terms of boss problems, I don't think there are any mention-worthy things here. Maybe being frozen can be annoying, it's always. But mini-bosses and just regular old enemies can pose the largest threat to you over the course of your run. And obviously, you can add on Catastrophic Codex onto that list, or onto that already threatening enemy, because there's going to be Catastrophic Codex nearby around every 3 seconds or so. Which also brings us to our final section, my favorite section by far for this build. Recommended items and Arcana. In terms of items, you want cooldown reduction and signature charge gain. You want Family Seal. You want Perfect Time Crystal. You want just a fuck ton of cooldown reduction. You want a Captain's Ring because you're using 4 different elements. Just take advantages. Abuse as many items as you humanly can. You want Kasim's Airy Cloak, so you won't be hit by a consecutive effect when being stunlocked by a weather effect, for example, or by an enemy. You don't be hit by a weather effect, vice versa, and so on and so forth. Just take super strong defensive and offensive items. Cooldown reduction should be the end-all be-all. More base damage should be the end-all be-all. And other than that, just go for survivability with extra armor, with the Kasims, as I said. Even a Stygian Turtle Shell can be useful when you're hit by a lightning or a wind ability, or maybe even Perfected Storm. I'd just say pay attention to your weaknesses, as you have plenty, and I'd say the most striking ones are definitely base damage and cooldown reduction. You can increase your damage overall, your damage output, by both increasing your base damage and your reducing your cooldowns, or granting you a bunch of cooldown reduction. You could also arguably go for a bit of crit chance, as Meteor can hit decently well with a bunch of crit chance. I would personally strongly recommend picking up not something like Dice of the Nemesis. It's just not very reliable without an Robe, but instead picking up the Analytical Monocle, which increases the crit chance throughout the board without being conditional, unlike the Chaos Visor or the Dark Katana, for example. And my personal favorite, Singing Bowl, which doesn't work all that well, because first of all, you are not allowed to attack for a short period of time, and then the next ability you use will crit, guaranteed. But Crashing Meteor crits with the tiny meteors first, right? So even that won't be super useful here, as we're not going to be using the base version of the Meteor, which is kind of important. But yeah, you want a bunch of extra damage. However you actually achieve that is on you. Cooldown reduction is definitely a must. You have to build it regardless of what you do. Even a double toil I would consider viable, when combined with a bunch of extra armor. Same for Double Trouble. If you, like, for every single item that you pick up that says you receive extra damage, like a Paramassicon, Double Trouble, Double Toil, I strongly recommend you also pick up an equal amount of extra armor. Or at least a little bit of extra armor, a little bit of extra survivability. Extra healing can also be useful. That's why we are running Grid Robe after all. We don't just want to be fully on that armor train for defense. Healing is also an option in case we don't come across armor. So we are quite versatile in our building playstyle. Overall, I'd say anything basic Arcana related you can ignore entirely. Just entirely focus on your signature. Whether that is your personal playstyle or not, I think your basic Arcana is just too clunky and too terrible to use here, and it will definitely not carry you all the way, especially during the solo fight. You're going to be completely left behind if you focus on that, whether it be by gloves or candies or abilities and whatnot. Let's move on to abilities. In my opinion, you want to upgrade your Perfect Storm right away, just for more coverage. Not necessarily for more damage with the increased duration, but just more coverage overall, which can help you out a lot. Other than that, the other two abilities you can pretty much ignore for the longest time here. They are not super impactful compared to finding a new ability. Long-range abilities are a great pick for this, like an explosive, or a Bolt Claymore. Similar abilities that have a very long range that deal a large amount of base damage are very welcome. The more damage you deal, the less you have to compensate finding higher base damage items, for example, right? So it might be the case that you, over the course of your run, won't come across any base damage increases, any great ones like a Luxury Handbag, for example, or a Double Trouble, or non-cursed base damage increases like a Fiery Paintbrush, for example, which also pairs decently well with the Meteor, by the way. In that case, picking up an ability that already has a large amount of base damage, like the aforementioned Explosive Fireball, or the Bolt Claymore, or similar projectile, usually, abilities, can be very, very helpful. Also, those abilities are usually, generally speaking, a lot more versatile than your common, for example. They cover a lot more range much, much faster. You don't have to actually move there because they are long-range projectiles. They cover a lot of width with the Explosive Fireball, as an example here, right? They can hit entire large groups of enemies, dealing a very high amount of base damage over a very long range. You can use them as poking tools to bait out enemies or finish off rooms that you can't have any insight to because they are too far away from you and you'd have to actually physically walk into the room. You can check explosive barrels that way as well, and many other things. You want these versatile, very high power abilities. Jumps, I would sum up in addition, I suppose, because they grant you iframes, not only a bunch of damage and coverage, but more importantly iframes, which is a very strong defensive tool. Say you find yourself in a situation where there are just too many enemies on screen, and you can't, you see the elemental effect happening, and you can't physically dodge it. A jump can help you out more so than a dash. It just guarantees you a way out. It guarantees you that you will be able to position yourself better, be invulnerable in the process, also potentially deal a great amount of damage, and that you will be able to do that consistently over the course of your run without having to have a certain dash online right now, right? So you just keep up the run, keep the jumping ability open for whatever type of situation you will need it for, and then use it when it's appropriate, when the appropriate situation has come, in order to dodge a slew of attacks hitting you. That's the only thing that I can really recommend Jump Arcana for here. I don't think you should use them super aggressively. If you find some, if you happily manage to find some, luckily, you should absolutely keep them in the back of your mind and not spam the ever-living fuck out of them, unless you need them to deal damage for you, of course. Permafrost Bulwark, likewise, is incredibly powerful. Huge amount of damage, huge amount of defense. Literally makes you invulnerable for as long as you want to, pretty much. You can break free whenever you want to and be able to cast abilities again. Also deals just a large amount of damage and a large AoE around your character twice, which is incredible. The ability is just so brain dead. I absolutely love it. It's my favorite ability in the game, in case you didn't know. So, generally speaking though, you want projectiles, long-range stuff, long-range coverage, potentially projectile destruction as well, even though it's not going to be nearly as important for this particular run as just being able to stay alive and finish off enemies. The faster you finish rooms, the more room you will have afterwards to dodge these abilities coming your way, because, trust me, often you won't even be able to dodge this shit coming at you. It will just come right at your face in the worst possible moment, pun intended. It's just, man, It's so terrible. It's so terrible to deal with. So do any and all that you can that is in your power to mitigate their effects. I'd say the absolutely striking things here should be anything that grants you a large amount of versatility and damage is great. Anything that grants you a large boost to your survivability, like evasion, like healing from picking up gems, for example, or like a ton of extra armor, that's my personal favorite, is fantastic. You also have to keep in mind that you might have to reduce status effects on you, whether it be by an immediate catastrophic codex effect, like a perfect storm, or whether it be by enemies hitting you as a result of you being hit and interrupted by catastrophic codex. Elemental enemies can still afflict a status effect onto you. Poison, for example, could be incredibly terrible as it lasts very long. It cancels you out whenever you take damage, and for the duration you pretty much can't use any abilities because they would get cancelled, and you not only will have to dodge enemies and traps, but in addition also the Codex while being poisoned for that very long duration that you can't really do anything against. So keep in mind, status effects are incredibly dangerous to you regardless of who or what applies it, and you should try to mitigate those as well. Don't lose track of them. They are kind of important. I'd say, all that having been said, let's get right into today's run. Do I want to skip anybody in particular? Maybe Shu? Because I don't like evasion. I really don't like evasion a lot. I don't really want to have to care about that constantly. By care, of course, I mean having to disable that constantly. I just do not like that. So let's get rid of it right away. I don't want to fight evasive knights later on during the run here. I really have to make myself pay a lot of attention here. So we have Tapping Love, we have Abnormal's Cloak, which is good for the Meteor damage, but bad for the Perfect Storm damage, but also good for our dash, but also bad for our basic. I think that's a viable pickup. Not sure it's gonna be super useful. We have Bax as Cape Key, and the Sweater, whatever the hell it's called, Swagger Sweater or something, so we won't be able to be crit on. I think that's much more important than an Ebonwolf's Cloak right now. Oh, shit, and we should get it right away. So, I'm not sure these effects can crit on us. I would assume so, naturally speaking, so I would much prefer avoiding that. That's gonna be a lot of damage over the course of our run that we will be avoiding simply by picking up this item. Still gotta get used to the Hummingbird Feather. It's gonna help a lot when casting the Meteor cross pits like these. And when dodging like so. And like so. Oh, come on, just start to the comment. I'm tired of you. Stupid ass whirlwind. Perfect storm. We'll just grab that right away. I think I want both, just so I can pick up a luxury handbag later on. I can warrant the pickup, rather. Man, I never keep track of the ricochet of the freaking whirlwinds. They make them walk into the freaking comet every now and then. I don't think I want to say anything. Thank you very much. Now, one notable item is that the Wind Chime, which will spread status effects inflicted on the player to nearby enemies. But for that, like, you can't really use that as a decent starter relic, as you will need a bunch of armor to mitigate the damage, because you need to purposely let these abilities hit you. Which, of course, is super dangerous. That's a lot of extra damage you're gonna be taking. And not all of them inflict status effects. I believe only lightning and ice actually do. Let's cheat here. Oh, that's so cool. Hummingbird Feather worth it? Confirmed? Hell yeah. I can't really leave the map open while running around here, or I'm gonna miss some stupid weather effect striking me unexpectedly. That's how they always get you. By not paying attention for a split second. Come on, die. Die already, dude. Sometimes they combo you like that. Shit can be crazy, let me tell you. Gotta keep in mind that I'm not immune to explosive barrels. They can still get me stun-lined and fucked up pretty damn good. Right, let's grab the green. And maybe tapping gloves as well. That's a lot of extra crit chance that I can artificially force for our sweet, sweet Comet. We're just using Perfect Storm at this point for crowd control and interrupting enemies. Oh my god, the storm. Okay, Aben is definitely gotta be helpful here. Okay, let's grab tapping gloves. Oh no, we are one. We are one gold short, really? Oh no, we are missing a room. No, never mind, that's the chest room down there. Alright, let's just move on then. I don't want the basic Arcana upgrade here. I would much rather, wow. I would much rather keep my money. My nummy. Avoidable hits here, but I'm kind of a dum-dum. Oh, Perfect Storm is doing great so far. Fuck you, dude. Get that online for extra range. I like extra coverage. It's gonna come in handy on stage, on floor 3 and above, probably. Dude, the assassination attempts are getting more and more diverse here. Fuck, I dashed into that like an idiot. You gotta be very careful with these narrow corridors, as wind tends to strike when it's most unexpected. Hell yeah, extra health orbs. So much healing here. I love it. It's really, really helpful. They're still alive. Oh man, narrow corridors. Just abuse the hell out of them, but also be careful because they can abuse the hell out of you likewise. Oh, wow, that was a lot of wind damage there. Probably because the lamp had taken damage previously from a weather effect, but I didn't really notice. I really like this a lot. Hummingbird so far has been doing a fantastic job, and it's been very, very fun to work around. Oh, I would love a whimsical Explodium or a special Snowflake with this. I think it would go super well with the Perfect Storm and the overall run so far. No, fuck you. Frick you. Heck you. I hate people who say that so much. You don't want to swear? Alright, fine. Just don't say that dumbass shit. It sounds incredibly cringy. Freak you. Ooh woo. Come on, you guys! Relax for a second, please! Man, the whirlwinds! You are vicious, eh? Vicious and relentless, most importantly. Ah, come on. Crazy aim. Yes, Fiery Pepper is very impactful. Ticket is 115, therefore too expensive. Magician's Top Hat is okay. I could grab that, but I think I would much prefer actually grabbing the Nox token. Are we done here? I think so, yeah. We had a Dr. Song, if I'm not mistaken, which we can't really use. We'd have to spend a lot of money to be able to use her without losing Perfect Storm, of course. Double comment for ultimate damage. Oh, you son of a bitch! Only 60G? That sucks. Let's move on. I just didn't make a lot of money, I guess. Noxus token would have been fantastic, but oh well, not as good as the Fiery Paintbrush. That's potentially double damage on every single comment, which can be huge. I like that one even more so than the Singing Bowl, to be honest. Yes, make him stay in place. Toss these comments occasionally. It's always worth taking damage over. The faster I can finish this fight, after all, the less likely I would be to be hit by his freaking signature. Cast the double comment if I can. Okay, I can, but he will die anyway. A summon. That's not super useful because they are likewise affected by the effects of Catastrophic Climate, and therefore they will die very, very quickly by a single hit sometimes. Fuck you, dude. Screw you. You're so hardy for me. It's crazy. Stop. Get some help. Come on. Dude, the knights are really not right now. I keep calling them knights, but they're lances. I don't really distinguish between knights and lances, I guess. Dude, run for it! Apocalypse is coming, and it's coming right now! Giggity. You asshole. No, I can't be backed into a corner. Fuck you guys. That's a tough spot to be in. Mimic? No, okay. Break it, break it, break it, break it! Get the hell out of here. This room is way too narrow. And unpredictable. Fuck you. Fuck you guys! Screw you! You're just trying to combo me so hard. I love it. It's so entertaining. Always keep up the summon so they can help me out in case I'm stun locked. Seems like a decent strategy. But their summon... Oh, okay, that guy. Their cooldowns are very long. I'm trying to look at my cooldowns, but I really have to pay attention to whatever is going on here. Ow. Asshole. Quite low on HP right now. Well, I would appreciate something like... I'm getting this. I'm getting it right now. Oh shit, I didn't even see him. I was paying attention to the black guy so much. Okay, he hit me too. Ouch. Big ouchies, that was a lot of damage I must have just taken there. Woo! Pinata! We could try it. Yes, help me! Oh, great! Okay, max stamina is decent. Doesn't do a great job, I will say, but it's gonna be okay. Oh my god, the stun line. The combos. I'm being John Cena right now. I have to kill something. I can't see shit. Woo! Maybe we can make the signature in time. Make a run for it, and just hope they die. Okay. Let's keep going. We are still missing green. You absolute cunts. Unbelievable. Got the comment first, so the storm can potentially finish off all these small guys. Dude, what a room. Play around the corridor here. At least try to. Okay, we get a stone, we get anti-slow. Yes, Dr. Song, absolutely. Reduced summon cooldown? No. We don't have a rat key. Let's grab the healing pot. Do we grab bounty hunters? No, I don't think so. Anything else? Nope. So let's go. Maybe I'll just have to hold that Dr. Song's token for a while here. Thanks for destroying those obstacles for me. Much appreciated. Ouch! Man, corridors are so fucking dangerous. It seems area cloak, whimsical explodium. Definitely the cloak, it's on discount so I can afford it. That's gonna be very helpful. It still has a long cooldown. But it will keep me safe from a lot of trouble. Okay. That room definitely would have been a lot easier with the Kasim's, sorry, with an Explodium. Already down to 300 again. Really have to pay attention to my health bar here. Man, third dungeon is gonna be an absolute nightmare. I haven't really taken the best defensive measures here so far. Damn, Codex helping me out, it's on here. I ain't complaining. Magician's top hat, sure. Ow, I dashed into that. I meant to dash diagonally. Go for it. Gotta bounce the head. Gotta do it. Alright, I did it. Cool, moving on. And they do travel a long ass distance. Hits are great. Summon. I just need money, guys. I'm just here to collect the debt. Right. That's a jump Arcana. Very, very helpful. But it's so expensive. Oh, shit, man. I don't think... do I want Explodium or the jump Arcana? I don't know. Very hard decision. Because Explodium doesn't have a cooldown, so technically it's a lot more valuable. Jump is also very useful to bosses and for dealing damage, though. And my cooldown reduction is non-existent. Very, 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 very bad. I need at least like 2 seconds of cooldown reduction everything. That'd be fantastic. Be very, very helpful. I'll wait with the Doctor Songs until after the boss fight. Oh my god. Starting, of course. Down at 260. Let's grab the Explodium. We could also grab the treasure map. It's a little overpriced, to be honest. That is quite a price tag. But it will allow for us to be a lot more flexible in exploration. But also we'd have to stand still a lot more looking at the map, so I'm not sure that's gonna be super helpful to our overall cause here. Don't hold basic Arcana for too long, as it locks us in place. Okay, we don't have money for anything else here. Let's head to Dr. Songs. Do we actually do it? I kind of really want that Magician's outfit. I'll do it. And we get placebos for more crit chance. 12% if I'm not mistaken, right? Crit chance is fine, so I'll do like it. Crit chance with a fiery paintbrush could be incredibly strong too. Now lightning twins, not quins, shouldn't be too hot, honestly. But we should pay attention and not lose too much health by playing super aggressively. Should have dropped a comment there as well, so the max stunner. Because now I'm a little bit off with my signature. But I could still cast it in the end. I missed the comment. Cool. I totally missed the max stunner, but I think that could still actually connect to them. Okay, explosive fireball. Exploding fireball. Man, I always mix up the name. It's just so simple, but you can still memorize it wrong. Probably because it's so simple. Do I want the summon or max stun? I think I want to keep the summon as they are a little more reliable. Max stun literally keeps enemies stun locked, but the summons kind of distract them as well, which can be helpful. Sometimes it's detrimental, as enemies will attack the summons with a ranged attack, like elemental attack that pierces and will then leech through to me. But here, for example, it should be really, really helpful. Oh shit, dude, there's so much going on. Okay, we just proc the Casims. Get out, don't cast our basic for too long. Spiked emergency kit isn't helpful at all. We don't want that. We don't want to lower our max HP. I still keep dashing across pits, which I should just not be doing. I should not cancel my run animation. It's generally very, very bad to do. man, Hummingbird is just so freaking flexible. Okay, plenty of gold. Someone's probably left alive, but I just want a little bit of extra gold gain. Okay. Trap room's always bad. Should have just used my summons right away to keep me safe, even though they don't deal a huge amount of damage. Okay, double evasion. Evasion when I'm on low HP. One revive item with the scissors. That could be very, very useful. Also, I don't need anything but my signature and my basics, so scissors is incredibly useful. Calvin Sandy's shoes is okay, but a little unreliable. Then you have the canvas, which stacks up neatly with another item we already got with the Fiery Paintbrush, so we have to take it right away, as it saves a bunch of inventory space and has a strong effect with the evasion and the dash cooldown reduction, even though we don't really care for that. But the evasion is very, very nice. Occasionally when dashing can be super useful. My summons won't move when there's no enemies nearby. Quite helpful for that particular situation right there. Oh, come on, that just procced the Kaseems. Let's keep running for it. Green. We can't afford these yet. Let's do pink too. We need extra money anyway. Annoying trap room. Very, very annoying trap room. Even the mere shape of this room means trouble. More money. I'll take it. And then bail. Trying to bail myself all the way out of here. Oops, wrong direction. Whoopsie-daisy. Oh, you son of a fuck! Stop rocking like it seems. Okay. Calvin's? No. Scissors. That's a backup life, which is a lot more impactful. Clearly. Okay, Kaseems is coming. Back on there. Soon. Just finish off the fucking rogue. He's gotta die. I don't care what's going on, but the rogue's gotta go, man. I think I got the one that... Yeah, rogues cannot actually teleport because of this, and neither can archers, so that was perfect for that boss fight right there. I don't have a lot of gold. I think I should just keep going, honestly. Just keep going. Ignore everything else. Move on, friend. There's still one more floor. This is kind of the hard part, after all. And then we will only be having bosses. Pretty much, from this point onward, right? Which is great, because bosses are a lot easier than stages with this one. Proc the Kaseems there. I feel like that was a decent proc though. You son of a bitch! Come on! Oh, trap room, of course. Love the evasion on the dash there. Super, super useful. Oh man, I wish these were pits instead of spikes. Woo! Oh no, come on! That's another Kaseem's proc. I think we still need more money, unfortunately, so kind of have to keep finding things. Oh my god. Dude, those are the worst rooms. Okay. No decent items in here, just a healing part. Do we heal right away? I think so. I think we heal right away. I think we don't even risk anything. We just want to find Nox and get the hell out of here, I think. Stop hitting the chest, you guys! Woo! Sweet, sweet healing. What an odyssey just for one fucking chest. Oh my god, so much going on. Nothing here, let's just reset quickly so we won't be hit by any elemental attacks. Ignore the rogues. I don't really feel like dealing with these guys. Okay, that's the magician's wand. Oh my god! So much extra damage. Yes! And the exit as well. Crazy. Ah, there's so much going on. Just hit anything so I can use my signature and fucking full clear the room. Let's go! Okay. Keep doing weird stuff and we should be good to go. Anything in here again? No. Let's bail. Oh man, that was a quick one, luckily. Could have been so much worse. And now we finally got peace. Though we will have to kill Zeal with nothing but fire damage and wind damage. Yikes, this is gonna take a while. But we deal pretty great damage. Okay, that's annoying. Signature. I missed the part where I actually have to sprint. Just spam, honestly. As long as I can generate enough signature, I will be fine. And I'll still receive plenty of healing here anyway. Mark, I'm not sure that's actually gonna be useful, but why not? Sure, we'll grab it. Even though, because of the Royal Flush, it would have been much more beneficial keeping the wind element. Right. Wait a second for cooldowns. And then just hit the screen, because that's what we do. Use the summons so they can eat up 1 or 2 projectiles, so I have a clear path to dodge through. I do like that a lot. Summons are useful. They don't even need to do damage. Oh yeah, boys! We did it! Woo! That was great. That was very thrilling, and we can get the anti-freeze here. Toss this because we won't need it any longer, and we could grab prismatic, but who needs that anyway? Greased boots for no, I don't think we need that either. Yeah, let's just grab prismatic and go for it. It's the only thing that remotely does anything for this fight. Let's grab some healing. Max Fear. Yeah, maybe for second phase, but for first phase we'll use the summon instead for a tiny bit of extra damage, and yeah, nothing else really, just a tiny bit of extra damage. It's not gonna do anything else for us. Alright, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, let me switch! I always keep forgetting that max speed can't actually do anything to chaos projectiles. I keep doing it! Why do I keep doing it? I don't know! Healing. Play around the perfect storm. Okay, we're good to go. We see on safety scissors anyway. G to the G, my G. That was great. Holy fuck, that was such fun. Woo! That was probably the only actually challenging, but at the same time fun run modifier run that I've done. And we've had challenging runs that were just unfun because I'm not dealing any damage, or I feel like I'm literally torturing myself here. We've had runs that were so innately busted, like the scythe runs in particular, that you can just literally breeze through everything. It's still fun nonetheless, going off, but it's only so fun doing that 100 times, right? And today we actually had a very good run. I loved this one a ton. I would actually probably play Catastrophic Codex with a randomized build as well. Yes, it'd be complete chaos and very risky at times, but man, it's great. It's such fun to use. Chaotic situations everywhere. It's the closest thing that you can get to an additional difficulty modifier in this game without actually changing up the gameplay too drastically. But it does change things so much that you will occasionally lose, just because, right? Just because of this item. And then other times you will feel incredibly relieved to have won. I just love that so much. It's like a super sweet actual run modifier. I love that so much. Mwah! Chef's kiss, 10 out of 10. It's great. I loved it. I loved it, loved it, loved it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you had a great time too. I would absolutely replay the ever-living shit out of this. That was great. Even with the Hummingbird, man, Hummingbird helped so many times when I would otherwise fall into a pit or deliberately dash into a pit, right? Here I could actually stand on the pit and just walk around and aim my Meteor better, which is an LOS ability, but I have to be fairly close to even hit this thing consistently. Man, that was great. Just such fun. I loved it so much. That was great. Thank you very much for watching, and as per usual, I wish you all a good morning, a good day, or a good night, and until next time, bye-bye!